Welcome to my channel. My name's Chance, and it's time to talk about some board games. We're going to be continuing my top 100 series, and today's video is going to be on numbers 30 to 21. You know what? By the time I finish this series, I'm probably going to have like a new top 100, so I probably just need to restart this whole thing. And that sounds like a lot of work. But that's a future problem, right? So let's just get things started and kick things off with my number 30 board game, and that is going to be Cryo. So Cryo is a space theme worker placement game where basically you were on a collaborative spaceship with different factions on it, but it's crashed. It's crashed on an ice planet. It's basically Hoth from Star Wars, you know. Basically anything left on the surface is going to freeze and die. So you guys need to get underground into these caverns to basically save your crew members. But problem is you don't really trust any of the other teams now because you don't know why the ship crashed. You think it might have been sabotage. So you're not going to trust anyone. You're just trying to rescue your own crew. You don't care about the other crew. In fact, you may try to sabotage the other crew to destroy the other players' people. Yeah. So the way the game works now, this is a Luke Laurie Tom Jolly game. I've already talked about one Luke Laurie Tom Jolly game. That's a Manhattan Project Energy Empire. There we go. And also Luke Laurie was in Whistle Mountain. So this has kind of the standard, what I'm going to call the standard Luke Laurie worker placement mechanism, where essentially you have a pretty continuous flow in this game. Players are going to be placing out their workers on these spots, and then they're going to have a recall turn. That recall turn is going to be kind of where you trigger your own little engine that you have built. Now, in Manhattan Project Energy Empire, when you do that recall, or well, when you send out your workers, you're going to be doing some tableau building and a little bit of engine building with that one. Cryo, I think that it's less so. You're basically going to be building up your own little resource conversion economy type of thing going on. So your player board has the little slots for these tokens, and you're going to be sending these drones out to those worker placement spots and blocking those spots from other players. So there is worker placement and blocking, and then you're going to generally be slotting in these tokens on your player board, which are going to tell you like, oh, or you're going to define things like I'm going to convert crystals into card plays or card draws or whatever. And then when you do your recall step, you're going to take your drone back, put it on your player board, and activate one of those columns that you've built and do your own little custom conversion engine. And this is going to be, each person is probably going to go after their own strategy, because as you take those worker placement spots, you're going to block certain tokens that are available to other players. So they're going to have to find their own path to be able to optimize their own little resource engine that they have going. And I find it's a lot of fun. This game is really snappy to play. The rules are very straightforward. It's an easy one to teach. I love just how minimal this game is with its rule set. Everything is like, there's a lot of different spaces on the board that you can go to, but a lot of them share the same exact rules and the same exact functions. And then so building up your own resource conversion engine, that's a lot of fun. Getting your people down into those caverns, trying to figure out how to manage those resources to be able to send your crew down to those caverns, which has a little bit of an area control game at the end game scoring. So I really enjoy all those aspects of it. I also enjoy the end game timer, where every time someone does a recall, they have to process an instant token, and this instant token sometimes will be like, oh, gain this resource or whatever, but a lot of times it's going to be, oh, this is a sabotage token, and this is where you're going to be taking out the other player's crews. So overall, I think everything just hangs together really well on Cryo. And the last thing I'll mention is the cards. There is a card deck, but not all the cards are unique, which, you know, that might be a turnoff for some people. They're like, I want 100 different cards, each one being unique. But I think this game is great because they're not unique. Like, I don't have to do a lot of explaining. There's not a lot of edge cases I have to worry about. Like, I can generally go through these cards if I wanted to during the teach and be like, oh, this is this card, this is this card, this is this card. There you go. Those are the cards in the game. But overall, I think the cards are all pretty self-explanatory. There's a nice reference in the back of the book for if a player wants to look up and just kind of further understand their card. But because you're going to see a lot of the same cards again, it's really easy to pick this game up and really easy to reintroduce again, because you're not always searching for, hey, what's this edge case? What's that edge case? What's this card mean? I don't understand the text here. Everything's very straightforward. And also the cards are multi-use. They have 3 different uses for them. You can play them as vehicles to get down to those caverns. You can play them as upgrades to basically power up your actions in the game, or you can play them as missions to kind of improve your end game scoring. So, and those cards have, they all kind of link together. So basically that one card, usually the goal is linked to like what the vehicle can do and is linked to what the upgrade does. So you really have to debate like, oh, do I play it as the goal and then hope to get another one out of that deck later on? So just a lot of good decisions. Just a very streamlined Euro-y worker placement game that I highly recommend. All right, let's move on to my number 29, and that is going to be the box next to me. This is Cosmic Frog. Cosmic Frog is the endgame scoring is a spatial puzzle of putting down these hex tiles and trying to get them into be in rows and columns of matching types of hex tiles, and then you're going to remove those from your board and score points based on that one. But that is not what this game is about. This game is about opportunistically punching your friends. Yeah, you're going to be playing as giant space frogs. I think you're 2 miles high, and you're powered by like a internal like sun slash like mini fusion reactor type of thing going on there. And you are going to be going out onto the what's called the shard, and you're going to be trying to stuff land down your gullet and trying to store that, and then jumping back in the ether to spit them out into your vault. Yeah, this game is insane. It's by the brilliant mind of Jennifelli. Just absolutely crazy theme here, and I love it. I'm all in on the theme. Now, the part that is a little hard to sell on people is the combat, right? Like, not a lot of people like the direct take that, and Cosmic Frog is basically direct take that. Now, you can play this game where you go out and you're just like, I'm just going to collect these shard pieces, and then or these land pieces, and I'm going to go out in my ether, spit them on my vault, do my little puzzle, then go back on the shard, spit them out, go back in the vault, and the game's going to be insanely boring if you do that. It's going to have very little interest to anyone. What's more exciting is you see someone that's within range of you, and you're like, I'm going to go and punch you. Because when I punch you, I have the opportunity of you spitting land out of your gullet, and then I'm going to swallow that land and take it from you. Then I'm going to jump back into the ether and spit it out in my vault, which means that not only have I improved my point scoring potential, but I've also reduced yours. So that gives me a higher potential of winning. That's called action efficiency right there. So that's the part that a lot of people are going to enjoy, but I think it's a lot of fun. And I like how the action deck is set up, because essentially every player is going to have, I think, 2 action cards shuffled into this shared action deck, and you're going to be flipping these cards over, and that tells players when they get to take their action. That means you have a lot of randomness on like when you're going to be able to do things and where people are going to be at when you get to do those things. So it might be like you flip things over, and earlier in the deck you're like, I'm not taking any actions, and then you see someone move in close to you, you're like, ooh, if I flip that card flips over, I'm going to attack you. They move away, you're like, oh shoot. And then later on someone else moves in, then your card comes up, and you're like, well, you're closer, so I'm punching you now. Yeah. And also when you punch people, like you can do these combats in ether and stuff, and like you can punch them into the outer dimension, and then essentially that player is kind of like frozen for a little bit. All they can do is roll a die on their turn. But what's cool is that they actually are going to keep their action cards, and once they break out of the outer dimension, they come like bursting out. They're like, oh! And then essentially they get to use all the action cards that they've stored during the round. So they just get to pile on the actions and like go and just beat people up for a little bit. So I think it's brilliant. I think it's a lot of fun. A little randomness on the end game timer, lots of randomness with the combat, because you also have these mutation cards, which that gives you the asymmetry in this game. And essentially this is kind of like Cosmic Encounter, where at any point you can reveal your mutation card, start taking advantage of its little asymmetric power, and these all powers are all game breaking in some way. They're all insane. They also change what dice you get to roll in different combat situations, which can make you more powerful in certain regions of the board. Yeah, just brilliant. And then the last thing is there is going to be an event that can cause mutations, and you can try to prevent this mutation, but maybe you don't want to prevent the mutation, which means you're going to get rid of your little power card, and you're actually going to be dealt a new power card, and your frog's going to mutate into something new and exciting. So yeah, just absolute insanity, chaos at the table. Lots of people are not going to enjoy the direct take that, but I think if you find the right group, this one could be a lot of fun. That's going to do it for 29, Cosmic Frog. Okay, now on to number 28. We're going to change things up a little bit. No more fighting, but we are staying in the sci-fi theme, but less in the fantasy realm, moving it back into kind of hard sci-fi. This is going to be The Search for Planet X. Now, this is a deduction game. It's 1 to 4 players, and basically this is based on that theory that there might be an extra planet in our solar system out there. Like if we look at the orbits and stuff of the planets, there might be a planet X out there beyond like Pluto that's just really hard to find, because space is big, you know. It's like it's dark, and like not a lot of light going out there, so hard to see. I have no idea where this theory stands today. I think this theory came out, I don't know, like 10, 15 years ago or something. I remember it being a while ago now, but yeah, so I don't know the actual science behind it anymore, but it's an interesting thought. Now, the way this game is going to work is that you have this circular track, and basically you're an astronomer, and the circular track represents where the solar system is kind of located, or where you can see in the solar system for now. Like you have half the board that you can see at any given time, and you're going to be moving your little sundial around around this board and basically saying like, oh, I can see this part of the sky, I can see that part of the sky. But whatever part of the sky you see, you're going to basically take an action to try to discover information. You're going to go out there and you'll be like, I'm going to query, or I'm going to look in zones 2 through 8, and I'm going to ask, are there any asteroids in this zone? So this game is app driven, so you're going to type it in the app, you're going to be like, I'm doing a survey in 2 to 8, are there any asteroids? And the app's going to tell you there are 2 asteroids in this zone. You're going to be like, okay, great, I found some asteroids. And I think there's going to be like a total of 4 asteroids, and then the game has some base rules on how these different objects are located. Like it'll be like, the asteroids have to be within like 8 zones of each other. So you got to find all 4 asteroids within 8 zones or something. And then you have like rules on the comet. The comet has to be like directly across from an asteroid. So if you find the asteroids, you know the comet has to be in one of those other 4 spaces on the opposite side of the board from them. So it has a lot of just base rules that are pretty easy to remember, pretty easy to get into, and you're basically just trying to do your queries to find out how those base rules link together in the game. Now, this one is, I absolutely love it. I love deduction. I think it's a lot of fun, but it's not a lot of people. There are some people that are not going to enjoy deduction games. Now, I do feel that deduction is a skill, so it's unfortunate where like introducing a deduction game to people can be kind of hard because especially if you played it a lot, you are at a strong advantage if you played deduction games before, which means that asymmetry and skill can be a bit of a turnoff for some people. But just to let you know, if you're bad at deduction, I think Search for Planet X is a fantastic way to practice deduction because it has a great solo mode. I had a lot of fun playing Search for Planet X solo. So yeah, it's a really well designed, and also I should call out that those queries that you're doing, like you have different kind of like, if you do a query that gives you a lot of information, then essentially you are going to be moving on this time track further than the other players. And the other players could do things that maybe they give them less information, but they just don't move as far. They do a broader query that gives them less, and they're like, maybe I can learn something from this broader query that can make it so I can do this in less time than other players, because that's really what you're trying to manage in this deduction, is the amount of time it is taking you to discover Planet X. So whoever discovers it first is, and also this is the interesting part where the person that discovers it first may not actually win the game, because it's going to end up being a point tallying thing. You're going to be publishing papers during the game, which is going to basically allow you to score points based on the other discoveries you make in the solar system. So if you find the asteroids first, if you find the gas giants first, like all of that is going to give you points. And then basically whoever scores the most points is going to win the game, which is a nice change from deduction. It's not like you just need to be the one to win it. You need to be doing good throughout the entire game, and you're going to score points based on how well you really did deducing those other objects out. Now, yeah, that's all I got to say on Search for Planet X. I think it's a really good deduction game. I think it's my favorite deduction game right now. If you want something co-op though, Bomb Busters is great. That one I'll probably talk about later. But yeah, so really good one out there. All right, moving on to my number 27. This is going to be another sci-fi one, Line of Fire Burnt Moon. So this is the lane battler that's kind of based on the Undaunted system, or I should say strongly based on the Undaunted system, because it's basically Undaunted the lane battler. There are a couple differences, but I'll call out that it uses the core Undaunted elements. If you watch I think my last video, I talked about Undaunted Stalingrad, and yeah, it has a lot of similarities to that game. Basically, you're doing a deck builder, but you have access to all of your supply cards at the same time. Like you have one card in your deck, or maybe 2 cards, I forget, that when you play it, you can do like a bolster action. You can go and like search through your supply and grab the cards that you want to add to your deck. And that's how this one works. You're basically trying to strengthen up your different squads, and you have like an A squad, a B squad. You have 3 or 4 units per squad. It's like you have your Moss unit, which is your like universal drone that's going to do like the control action, which is required for the victory condition in the game. Then you have like your TIR units, which are like your attack drones, have a stronger attack power. Then you have like your Dakus, which are the defender drones. So basically you have your different squads, your different types of drones that you're going to be putting out into those lanes to try to either take control of those lanes, or maybe counter your opponent, or maybe put out those attack drones to try to take out their Moss units to destroy their control units. Because the 2 victory conditions you're going after are either control lanes with a certain point threshold, I think like 8 points, or to eliminate all the other players' Moss units on their side of the board, because that means they can no longer take control, so you have won the game. Now, the way this game works is that you are going to be First up, it has the initiative system in Undaunted, so you're first going to select a card face down simultaneously with the other player, reveal it. Whoever revealed the higher value card is going to take the initiative. This is so important, especially towards the late game, where essentially like you are maybe going for control of that last space, and maybe your opponent's going for control of that last space, and whoever goes first could be the victor in that case. So you're really, really trying to judge it. But also those higher value cards, they generally have better abilities on them, so you're like, ooh, do I want to spend? I don't know if I can spend this. I really need to do that action on that card. I can't spend this for initiative, but I have to spend it for initiative. I really like that decision with that initiative system. Then once that's done, you're going to take your actions, and basically you're going to be playing cards to be able to activate units that you have on the board. Now, this is unlike other Undaunted games where you are represented by tokens on a map. This one, your cards actually have to go out into play to be able to activate them. So this means that if you want to activate your Moss A card, your control unit basically, you need to have a Moss A card out in one of the lanes, and you need to have a Moss A card in your hand to be able to discard it to play it. So it gives a very different balance to building that deck out and being able to manage the units in your deck. And also that those units in your deck represent the strength of it. So let's say that player attacks your Moss A unit and they manage to destroy it or whatever. You are first going to search your hand for a Moss A card, then your discard, then your deck. Only once there are no Moss A cards left in your deck anywhere, that's when you're going to remove your unit from the board. So you are really trying to manage how many cards you keep in your deck for each unit type, because you want to be able to activate them. You want them to not be destroyed from the board, so you want to keep some in your hand to keep them alive, but you want to be able to put more units out, so you want to get other units into your hand. So yeah, just managing that balance of when do you add cards to your hand for that unit to be able to activate it more versus getting other units so you can actually deploy more units to the board to take more control. It is a great decision space. Now, also the big change from Undaunted is that there's no dice rolling. It is deterministic combat, and this is the part that I'm a little less excited about. I really like dice rolling in my games. I was just talking about Cosmic Frog here, so I like that chaos element. And the deterministic combat can make Line of Fire drag a bit, because you can kind of get into that deadlock zone where like you're not really able to kill the other player's units, and the other player can't kill your unit. So you're really just kind of draw up until one of you has a better hand than the other person, right? So I do feel like it can drag a little bit towards the end, but I still really enjoy playing Line of Fire. All right, moving on. I gotta stop saying okay between these things. Oh well, it's a little habit now. We'll try to break it. Moving on to number 26, and this is still sci-fi. I got a lot of sci-fi games on this list. Okay, number 26, this is Arcs. So first thing you might say is like, hey, Chance, why is Arcs not higher on your list? Everyone loves that game. What's wrong with you? Well, I would say that Arcs base game, it's not my favorite. I don't love Arcs base game. I think it's really good. It's a very solid design. It's just crazy tight though. Like it is wound very tight. The action economy in it it's stressful. Like I would say this game is clearly designed to be very competitive, and I am not a very competitive player. I'm not good enough to be competitive, or I just don't care enough to be competitive. One of those two. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe I'll be nice to myself and say I don't care enough. But yeah. So this is going to be one where it has a pseudo trick taking element to it, and basically the lead player is going to play a card, and it's going to have a certain number of pips on it. They get to take actions based on the number of pips, and the type of card played will determine what types of actions they have access to, and then other players can follow suit if they want. Basically, they can play a card and they'll take actions based on their pips, and basically the lower value cards have more pips than the higher value cards. But what's good is that if you follow with a higher value card, and if you're the one that kind of wins the so-called trick, you're going to take the initiative, and then you can then you have the ability to play your lower numbered card to be able to take the action pips. Because the problem is that if you play a card that is lower value, you're actually probably going to do a copy action, and you only get one pip now. You don't get to you don't get to take all the pip actions on the card. So playing a lower value card following a higher powered card can be a bit of a waste in your action economy, because you're like, oh well, this one could provide 3, but if I play it as in this scenario, then it only provides 1, and that's a wasted opportunity right there. So I should probably try to get the initiative so I can play my lower powered card. Yeah, so managing that initiative system is crazy important in this game, and that's why they gave you a whole new action to be able to manage it. And it is this thing where you can play another card face down under your played card, and that allows you to just seize the initiative outright. It doesn't matter who would have won the round. You are just going to take it, and you're going to lock it up, and you're going to be able to play next. But you've also just reduced your hand size, and this means that you're not going to be able to play into one of the final tricks of the game. game, most likely, which can really be detrimental to you, but maybe it's worth it to be able to activate more pips on one of the cards that you have. So balancing that decision space is really, really hard. And I would say that first plays of this insanely frustrating. It's just like, I want to do more things here, but I can't do things. So yeah, that's where arcs landed for me early on in my plays. Also the dice rolling. Now there's like different types of dice. You have the blue dice, which are like the safe dice, and then you have like the red dice, which are like the high damage but dangerous dice. Like you have the potential to be damage as the attacker. But I like the chaos, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going for maximum damage, so I'm rolling the red dice. And usually I just get wrecked when I do this, right? It's a bad idea. And then I saw someone else play the game, and they were like, oh, I'm gonna move in to do my attack. I'm gonna use one of my pips to roll the blue dice and do a lot of damage to you first, and then I'm gonna switch to the red dice. And I was like, oh, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to like weaken your enemy first and then go in for the big final kill attack. I see now. So yeah, I'm just not I'm not able to plan that far ahead, and I just like trying to take that risk, push my luck, and yeah, not usually a good idea. But the reason why Arcs has moved so far up my list is because of the campaign mode. Blighted Reach, I am really, really enjoying. I am only 2 sessions into the 3-session campaign. Arcs is kind of built, the name Arcs is around the 3-act structure of a story. So we have Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3. So I really liked kind of all the meta stuff that went into this game. If you want to learn more about that, definitely watch Efka's video on No Pun Included. Really fascinating video, but it's like an hour long, so just be aware of that. But I like the fact that now in this campaign mode, I have kind of a second objective that I'm working for. Sure, I'm still going for first. I'm still competing for the other players at the table, competing for victory with the other players at the table. But I now have this story objective that I'm also going for. So I want to try to advance on my civilization's story objective, which is a lot of fun to try and engage with. I like trying to see where this is going to go, like as I try to unlock those new parts of the story with this this kind of 3-act thing I have going. So I find it more engaging now that there's more than just, oh, I'm racing up this point track. Now I'm trying to race up the point track, but I'm also trying to race down the point track with my story objective to try to achieve that before the end of the game. So yeah, I'm really enjoying this part of it. I am going to be excited to report back on it once I am done with the Blighted Reach campaign and give you my thoughts on Arcs in as a whole. Okay, there it is again. Okay. Let's moving on to number 25, and finally we're moving out of space. We're still kind of in the sci-fi genre though, because we are going to be talking about Captain Sonar. So Captain Sonar is a real-time, I'm going to call it real-time battleship. It is basically mostly a 4v4 real-time battleship game where the 2 teams are going to be piloting a sub, and you're going to be trying to find each other on this square grid map to be able to shoot each other down with torpedoes or whatever. This game is a blast. I do not play it very often. This is probably one of those standard like con style games. Like it's best if you're gonna have 8 people, and it's best if you play it back to back a couple times too, because usually the first play goes a little rocky getting people introduced to it, and then the second play is super exciting, and third play is better. So the more times you can play it, the better it gets. So this is one where you're going to have a team, you're going to have a captain, a first officer, an engineer, and a radio operator. And basically the captain's job is to call out the direction of movement and try to get the sub positioned to be able to attack the other player. So you have the square grid, and the captain's going to say things like north, east, north, west, and you're just going to move one space on this grid for each movement that's called out. Now, the radio operator on the teams, the opposing team's radio operator is going to be listening to that captain and trying to figure and hearing what they say, and they're going to be marking on their little transparent sheet. Like if the captain says north, they're going to draw an up line. If the captain says east, they're going to draw a right line. If they say north, they're going to draw an up line, and then they're going to be moving this transparent sheet over the battlefield map basically, and trying to figure out what are the possible locations that they could be in, because this sheet has this battlefield has islands on it. So essentially you can kind of, as you build out their route, you can kind of narrow down what are the possible locations that they could be located in. Now you have some other ways to find information. You can use the first officer to do things like sonar or drones, where you get to ask you basically stop the game for a second and you ask the other team to verify some information. Like you can be like, are you in this quadrant of the board or whatever? Or you can ask them for a with this part's cool. You get to ask them for a truth and a lie. Basically, the other team gets to tell you one true coordinate and one lie coordinate, and then you have to determine which one's the truth, which one's the lie. And this can be hard for the other team because if you are like trying to throw them way off base with a really bad lie, like the radio operator can probably easily eliminate it. They're like, ah, no, that one's the lie. Now I know where you're at. So you got to be careful about what you're lying about to be able to not reveal too much information, which is, yeah, that's a great part of the game. Now the engineer is also managing a little spatial puzzle where every time the captain calls out a movement, they're going to be marking off a system on their submarine board. Basically, every time you move, you do a little bit of damage to the sub, and the direction you move determines where that damage is applied. For some reason, I don't know how that part works. These subs are fictional, right? So, but they're going to call out. They're going to be like, "Hey, we can't go north anymore because you're going to damage this north system, and then that's going to damage the sub. So don't go north anymore. We need to go east so I can clear the damage because you have a self-healing system that if you manage to like connect this little puzzle, you get to erase all the damage, and then you can be like, hey, north is a good go again." So I absolutely love just managing that puzzle. All the team has to stay aligned. Basically, you have the first officer trying to make sure the engineer and the captain are aligned, and then basically the first officer is also trying to get things charged. The radio operator is trying to confirm where the enemy is located, because at a certain point, the captain's probably going to yell, "Stop!" And then the whole game stops, and they are now probably going to try to launch a torpedo. And they're going to be asking the radio operator, "Hey, are you sure they're there?" And then they're going to be like, "First mate, we're ready to launch torpedoes." And then the engineer is going to be like, "Hey guys, you didn't ask me. We can't launch torpedoes. The system's damaged." And then you're going to be like, "Ah, shoot, we damaged ourselves." That's how the first game goes, because everyone forgets to ask their engineer if the systems are ready. But if the systems are ready, they're going to launch that torpedo, and they're going to say like A4, and the other team's going to be like, "Miss," because you're nowhere near them. Yeah, so so overall, this is just a brilliant game. There's also a surface mechanism where if you're at a point where you're like, "Oh, we have too much damage on ourselves, we need a surface," you yell surface, and the other team gets to keep on going, and you have to tell the other team what quadrant you surfaced in. So it now becomes the other team's like, "Oh, we know where you're at. Okay." And then the other team just starts rapidly moving towards you, trying not to damage their own self while they're racing towards you before you can go below the water and hide again. Just phenomenal. Just such a fun experience. Like I said, it can be a little bit of a slow start, but I feel like, and like early on in the game, it can be like, how are we ever going to find them? Like, this doesn't make any sense. But once the players get close to each other and they realize that they're close to each other, like the excitement just ramps up, and people are like, oh, okay, we gotta do this. Okay. So yeah, that's Captain Sonar, one that I'd love to play more, but it definitely just it thrives in kind of that con setting a little bit more. Okay. Moving on to number 24, this is going to be a more fantasy themed game, and it's Spirit Island. So this one is that kind of heavier co-op game, and I think it's just a blast to play. I love the design of this game. So you have these colonizers that are coming to this island, and they're basically trying to expand and build a new civilization on that island, but they're also kind of pushing out the natives, and that's not great. Luckily, this island has some spirits on it, well, a bunch of spirits on it that can help with scaring off or eliminating these explorers that are going to be coming out on the board. So the AI system of this game is probably one of my favorite parts about it, because that's the thing you're going to be fighting, and I find that when you first play the game, the upkeep can be a little daunting, but overall, because it's very deterministic, like, it is very easy to process once you understand it. It's like, okay, you first are going to do an explore action. These explorers are going to come out from their little huts and from the ocean, and then you're going to do a build action later on, and you're basically, anywhere there's now explorers, you're going to put down a little house, and then if there's a house there, you're going to put down a city instead and make it a little stronger settlement, and then, yeah, you move on to your action. So I find that the AI upkeep, the enemy upkeep, is pretty straightforward in this game and takes not a whole ton of time. I will mention that a lot of the expansions do add some stuff that complicate things, like there's the event deck added in Nature Incarnate, and I kind of hate the event deck, but it's kind of like needed for some of the spirits and some of the things that happen in the game later on. So you kind of like are forced to use it in a way. I don't think you have to. You can kind of eliminate the spirits that require it, but overall, it's kind of like, okay, they built these future expansions around that event deck, and it just slows down the processing. It really tilts the balance of like the player actions towards that AI action. Not a ton, but it's still just a little frustrating that's in there for me. But moving on, then talking about out the spirits. Like, the players get so much asymmetry, especially if you get the expansions. You have just so many spirits that you can choose from, and they're really just working around these core mechanisms of the game. It's like you're going to be manipulating things, pushing things around, potentially damaging things, potentially doing defense actions, and it uses a very simple set of mechanisms and provides a ton of variability. And also, these spirits, they just feel very different when you play the game, and then how you combine these spirits makes the game play out very differently every time. So just the amount of variation that you get in Spirit Island is phenomenal. Now, I will call out that this game can take a long time to play. Like, even at 2 players, this game can be pushing 2 to 3 hours if you're really taking your time, planning your actions, trying to get to that victory condition. So that is a bit of a downside, and getting to that 3-player count, yeah, it's kind of like you need to have people that know how to play this game if you want to try to do well and take your time on taking those actions. But I think it's a joy to play. It has fallen on my list over time just because it's a bit of a beast to get to the table and to play. It is almost an event at this point. But I do think Spirit Island is a lot of fun. All right, let's move on to my number 23, and we're gonna move into kind of more realism here, and this is gonna be the game on my right, and it is Pipeline. I like that I have the contrast here, but I didn't really plan this. Contrast between Pipeline and Cosmic Frog. I have like the real world here, and then just absolute insanity, chaos over on my left here with Cosmic Frog. Okay, but that's besides the point. So Pipeline is a game that I shouldn't like. Like, looking at my taste in games, this is not one that should stand out to me, but I think this is just such a good design. It is an amazingly well thought out game. So this is probably one of the heavier games in my collection. I usually try to avoid heavy games because they can take too long. Like, learning the rules is just a bit of a pain. Teaching people is a pain. And I'm just like, I don't know if it's worth the effort. But Pipeline has a very streamlined rule book. It was a very easy game to learn. Like, I would say the actions they're incredibly straightforward, and they're tied in. The actions and the theme are tied in so well together that they're easy to remember. Like, I generally, when I bring this one out, I don't bring it out super often. It's one of those games where I'm like, I don't really need to reread the rules. I think I know how to play this game already. Like, it's just so well so cohesive as a design that I don't feel like I need to do that or do that whole reread and reteach and stuff like that. Now, the parts of this that I really like are you're basically running a business trying to refine oil. Basically, the government was doing it. Now they're saying, okay, we're going to let capitalism take over. So whoever wants to start a company, and they're going to be selling pipes for cheap that allow you to refine oil better or whatever. But over the course of the game, you're essentially trying to convert crude oil into low-grade oil, into mid-grade oil, into high-grade oil. There's a little chart at the top of the board that tells you how long of a pipeline you need to be able to do those conversion steps. And then you're going to be trying to collect like contracts to be able to fulfill those orders. And then you also have a market that you can just go and sell directly to, and then other players can actually buy from that market, and you're kind of competing for this market to buy the crude oil at the low prices, because as players remove cubes from those markets, basically the price of the oil is going to go up. So you have a bit of a race thing going on with the changing market values of these cubes, of the different types of oil, because there's 3 different types of oil that you're going to be managing. Like I said, this is a heavy game. But I may be making it sound more complicated than it is, but it is really straightforward once you get it to the table, which is really nice. Now, this is an action efficiency game. You're trying to do as much as you can in as few turns as possible, so you're really trying to make your business efficient in this game. Because like each action you take, I think you have 8 actions in the first year, 6 in the second year, and then 4 in the last year. So you get a reduction in actions, so you really need to be building up your business to be able to be more efficient in those later years, because you're only gonna have 4 actions that last year. That's like nothing. You're basically going to be selecting these tiles from the market and throwing them down and building out this little spatial puzzle of your pipeline. And this part is brilliant. It's crazy that this is combined in this heavy game, but you're going to be putting these tiles down and trying to build the longest pipeline you can in these certain colors, because that's going to allow you to convert crude into low and low into mid and so on. And that spatial puzzle right there, that's a brain burner, like just managing to do that. And then once you get those pipelines built, you can put your worker down to be able to activate that pipeline, to run them, and then to do that conversion step. But you're probably going to want to move to the point where you can put a machine down, because then you can put that machine there, and that machine can, at the end of your turn, you can always spend $15 to just run your machines, and they can run all the pipelines they're connected to. So that's the more efficient action, is being able to get that machine out and being able to pay to run those machines for that energy or whatever. But $15 in this game, holy crap, is that hard to get. because you are just going to be so strapped for cash in those first like 2 years, maybe even in year 3. You're going to be strapped for cash like the whole time, just trying to get your operation up and running. There's even a loan action in the game where you can go and take a loan. You can take a $15 loan, and you're like, oh, that's great. That's how much I need to run my machines. But then you have to take this penalty cube. The penalty cube is just a red cube. It represents your debt. You cannot pay it off. You're just going to get negative points at the end of or negative money at the end of the game for having those penalty cubes. And they scale. It's going to be like, oh, the first penalty cube you take is going to be like, I don't know, minus 20 bucks. Take another one. Oh, well, those two now are minus 50 bucks or so. Take another one. Oh, now it's going to be minus 100 bucks for taking that extra one. And you're like, wow, this scaling, this gets a little scary. Like you take 5 and you're at like minus 900 or something. I don't know. It scales crazy. But those penalty cubes are terrifying. So overall, this is just one of those games. And last thing I should mention, for this game being so heavy, this usually takes under 2 hours to play. Maybe an hour and a half, because I think it's just the teach. It doesn't take very long. The gameplay itself doesn't take very long. Oh man, so many good things to say about Pipeline. That's why it's here at number 23. I really like this as a heavy game. I've seen some posts from Ryan Courtney that he's thinking about doing a re-theme of this one because not everyone likes the whole oil theme, you know. So he's trying to see if he can figure out a new theme to kind of work into this game to see how that works out. So that's 23, Pipeline. Now moving on to number 22, and that is going to be Blood Rage. So this is a area control slash combat slash dying game. It's a very interesting game. This is different than a lot of area control games out there because it's not always that you want to win the areas, because you may be gaining different points in different ways than other players. Basically, whatever you do, you're going to be gaining points in this game. It is a Viking themed game where you are trying to gain glory through a battle and possibly through dying, because Valhalla is coming and the world's about to end. So yeah, you of course want to go out and pillage as many villages as you can before that happens. So the game is played over a series, 3 ages or 3 rounds of some sort, and basically it has these tiered decks. You're gonna have the first age deck, second age deck, third age deck. At the beginning of each age, you're gonna have a card draft. This is really where the game of Blood Rage shines, because you're gonna get these cards in your hand, then you're gonna select the one you want, and then pass the rest, and then pass those around the table. And these cards are they are awesome. First age, not too exciting, but you're gonna get some quests. Maybe it's gonna be like, oh, have control of this region at the end of the round, and you'll score some victory points. Maybe you'll get some power-ups for your units. It'll be like, oh, add +1 strength to your units over here or something. Or you're gonna get some, maybe you'll get something that says like, oh, if your ship dies, you're gonna get a bonus, whatever, 5 points or something, right? So those are the types of cards that you're gonna be going after in this game. There's also the strength cards, which are gonna be like your combat cards, because when combat happens, players will simultaneously commit a card to combat if they're participating in it. Then they'll flip it over and see who has the strongest combat during that round. And that part I absolutely love. I love having a simultaneous reveal in a game. It's so exciting, especially when players kind of bluff with their cards. Maybe they don't have a combat card, but they still put one down anyways, and then they reveal it, and it's like, I didn't add anything to this battle. So there you go. But yeah, so the way this game is going to work is that players are going to be using their rage, which is like their action points, deploy troops out to the map. Each region on the board has like a certain number of spots in it, and I love the fact that you're never really directly attacking anyone. You're not being like, oh, Steve, I'm going after you. Like, you're my target this round. No, you're just deploying units to the board, and then other people are potentially deploying units in the same area as your units, or next to the same area as your units. Because then later on, if you have units in an area, you can trigger a pillage. And pillaging is how you're going to be able to basically win those combats and potentially get the reward at that location, possibly powering up your little player board, because you're going to be making your player board actions a little asymmetric, maybe getting more glory points per battle, maybe being allowed to deploy more troops to the board. So you really want to go for those pillage actions to be able to power up your actions later on in the game. Now, when you trigger that pillage action though, if there are open spots on the board, or open spots in that area still, other players from neighboring regions will get the option to move into that battle. And yeah, maybe they want to. Maybe they know they're not going to win the battle, but they want to be there because they want their units to die. Because if you get your units sent to Valhalla, at the end of every age, Valhalla is going to empty, and any units that were there are going to score points for you. So you get a couple different paths of scoring here, where you get a nice... It's just a nice area control game where even if you are losing battles, you're potentially winning the game. If you're winning battles, you're potentially winning the game. So I find this one to be a really nice one to introduce to people, because first off, that draft is fun. There's also monsters in the game. These monsters are amazing. They're game breaking. They're just going, you can draft that monster card, then when you play it, you can put them on the board and just do something insane. Like, I think the troll or something, like you just put him down in a region and he destroys all units in that region. Yeah, not everyone's favorite, but it is just a fun, chaotic time, easy to teach, easy to introduce to players, and a little less aggressive than a lot of other area control games. I feel like I've had fewer hurt feelings in Blood Rage than I have with other area control games. I'm not going to say it's perfect, right? But it is one that I find easier to introduce to people that don't like area control style games. Now, the chaos does also mean that there can be a pretty wide disparity in the scoring in this game, especially if players aren't keeping checks on each other, or if someone is letting someone just run away with their strategy, especially the Loki strategy, right? Like, that one gets called out on the forums. I don't really care about some of those imbalances. I think it's fun to find those game-breaking things and seeing what happens. Like I said before, I don't really care about winning. I care about having a good time. And if someone else is having a great time just running away with the game and like being like, I have 300 points and second place has 40 points. Like, I'm like, good for you, man. Like, well done. So that's going to be a downside for some people, is just that chaos, just that disparity that can happen in the scoring, just the craziness that can happen in this game. And yeah, but I find it just a joy to play and a joy to introduce new players. So that's my number 22, Blood Rage. Now on to number 21, final one for this video, and this is going to be a Gest of Robin Hood. So once again, not sci-fi, woohoo, right? There's going to be more sci-fi games later, probably. Gest of Robin Hood is a two-player coin game. I believe that stands for counterinsurgency. So these style games usually are based around like war-style games. And, you know, this is a series that I've kind of been like, I kind of want to try a coin game, but I don't really love the theme of them. So they've been a bit of a turnoff. And also just the time investment in them can be a lot. Like, some of them will be pushing like 3-4 hours to be able to play them for this head-to-head experience. And I'd rather play some other head-to-head games that I'll talk about in later videos. But Gest of Robin Hood is kind of like a streamlined, stripped-down coin game, and also based on the Robin Hood stories instead of like a war game, which I really appreciate. One player is playing as Sheriff of Nottingham, one person is playing as Robin Hood and the Merry Men, and basically you're doing this thing, trying to win influence over the region and see who has that control at the end of the game. Because it's really a tug-of-war game. Basically, you have this track that when Robin Hood's in favor, he's going to be up on top of the track, and then when Sheriff of Nottingham is in favor, he's going to be moving down on that track. Then wherever that token is at the end of the game is going to be who wins the game. There is another end game condition. Basically, if you manage to move all the way up your track, you can win the game immediately, although I find that seems like it's going to be really hard to pull off. So the less likely scenario. But the way the game works is that you are both going to have your own little asymmetric puzzle that you're working on. Basically, Sheriff of Nottingham is trying to keep the kingdom running, keep the citizens happy, but also trying to make money. So he wants to tax the citizens. But you have to be careful about where you tax, because if you tax the wrong places, those places can turn into revolt and then support the Merry Men more. So you want to manage your citizens and the support you have from your citizens, and just tax carefully on the board so you're not benefiting Robin Hood, right? And then when you tax people, you're going to be putting out these carriages. These carriages are going to be moving the funds back to Nottingham. But the problem is that Robin Hood has the opportunity to take out those carriages. He can attack them and rob them on the trail. But Robin Hood has a little bit of variability in the actions that they can do. They're going to roll dice to see if they actually steal from the carriage, or they succeed or not. This means that Robin Hood, I feel like, can be a little more difficult to play, and also has a little more swinginess to it. Because if those dice rolls are not in your favor, you're probably not going to be doing great. Now, also, the sheriff can do things like put down trap carriages because what's in the carriages is going to be a secret to Robin Hood. So you can put out a trap that's going to make it a little more defensive, which is really cool. I like some of the tie-ins to the stories here with the mechanics. Now, all of this is, I find it interesting. I find the way the game works, gaining support in those villages, managing the revolts in the villages, trying to settle down those revolts in the villages as the sheriff. I find all of it mechanically interesting, but the part I love about this game is the initiative system. So back to like Undaunted, right? Like, I find an initiative system to be just an easy way to add a lot of tension in a decision in a game, and this one does a fantastic job with it. Basically, there's three action spots that players can choose from. The first action spot, you get to take like one action or something. The second action spot is you get to take the action of this event card, and this part is really cool because there's an event card that comes up every round, and basically you get to see what the player's actions are available to them. Like Robin Hood has a specific action they can do, Sheriff has a specific action they can do. So maybe you're like, oh, I want to take the event card just so you can't do that special action on that card because that's going to be bad for me. So I need to stop you from being able to have access to that. And then the third action spot is like you get to do 3 things instead of one thing. So you're like, oh, well, why not just take that third spot, right? Because that's the one that allows you to do the most on your turn. Well, first up, like I said, you might want to stop the player from taking that event card, or the problem is at the end of the round, the tokens are going to move back down into like first and second spot based on where they are on that action selection board. So the token on the left is going to take the first spot, and then the token on the right takes the second spot. That means the person that played furthest to the left on that track is going to have the initiative for the next round. They're going to be able to choose first. So taking that third spot guarantees that you're losing the initiative for the round. You might be like, oh, I can't let you have the options on next round, so I don't even care if I only take one action. I have to take that first spot because I can't let you have the initiative. So just that decision is, it's so well done in this game, especially with that event card, because when that player takes that event card, now the second player is like, do I want the initiative next round and take fewer actions this turn, or do I want to take a bunch of actions this turn and see how this plays out? It's such a great game choice in this game. So I think everything in this is really good. It's really nice and streamlined. I felt like as a coin game, this wasn't even that hard to learn. There were a few edge cases that came up during my first play, but it was a nice experience to it. Now I will call out that I don't have a lot of experience with coin games. If you want to have a broader perspective on this one, I'd recommend reading Dan Thoreau's review on BGG. He talks about his experience with coin games and how some of the stuff in this game, knowing the underlying structure of the coin series, plus the theme of Robin Hood, there were certain things that didn't like mesh correctly for him. But I would say for me, I did not have that experience. I just had a fun time playing this, and I'm real excited to keep revisiting Gest of Robin Hood. That's going to do it. That was my number 21. So that is it for today's video. That's my numbers 30 to 21, and we are almost done with this series. So that is pretty exciting. Like I said before, if you want to know when these videos come out, like and subscribe so you can see what my final top 20 are going to be. But for now, I'll say thanks for watching. Thanks for spending your time with me, and I will talk to you next time.